Only 15% of businesses in New Zealand have sales of $1 million dollars or more, and we are about to tick over $2 million dollars per annum. And I want to give to you some of the insights that have helped us get to that, and hopefully you can take some of these principles and plant them into your business. Now, you may not be shooting for $1 million dollars of turnover or $2 million dollars, but these are some good lessons in here that will dramatically improve your business because without doing some of these, you will not get to these levels. And these are some of the things that you can then recreate to help you scale to the point that you want to get to in business. Now, also, if you think about it, there are many construction businesses in New Zealand, and a lot of those will have higher turnover than is reality because they buy a lot of product and then on sell that. The same could be said for the likes of e-commerce, but we're talking about a service-based business here. But of course, you could argue, well, we have people that work for us and effectively we on sell their time in some way. The point being that when you start to get to higher levels of turnover, there are lessons in here. It is said that roughly only 5 to 7% of service-based businesses across Australia and New Zealand get to $2 million dollars of turnover. So to do it, you have to be doing things that others aren't willing to or prepared to do. So let me take you on a journey of some of the things that we've learned to get ourselves to $2 million dollars plus of turnover in a 12-month period. The first one is that simple scales. And what we mean by this is that as soon as you keep going into complexity and trying to do things that are very, very different, it is going to get very hard to scale that up because you will have things that break and you will have different things that you'll need to remember or the team won't remember. And those things become very, very hard to stay on top of. And then you increase your likelihood that you upset your clients. Again, remember, this is service-based for us. So the simpler and the more similar the type of work is that you are doing, it allows you to scale that up more effectively. But for a lot of us, we want to people please and tell everybody, yes, we'll do that and we'll do it your way. But that actually makes it harder to scale your business because you're basically trying to be everything to everyone. And then it can make it very hard to have a process that you will take people through with whatever it is that you are doing. And there's more likelihood that it could break. So your lesson there is to think about how scalable what you are doing actually is. Could you do it X number of times at your current pricing in order to get you to $1 million of turnover? If not, maybe you're not aiming for $1 million, but have a think about how many times you could do your service or sell your good, and therefore, can it actually get you to the turnover level or the profit level that you would like to get to? The second flows on from that, and that is that systems and processes are needed. People don't run businesses, systems and processes do. So you will need systems and processes. You will just be dealing with way too much to be able to remember everything, to then just pick it up and start doing it again. You will need well-run processes that you can funnel things through or pipe things through so that it goes through the system and the process the same way each time, much like point one, simple scales. So if you don't have these systems and processes, you will find that you will become the bottleneck of the business. So at some stage when you're scaling the turnover and size of your business, you'll have to put a lot of time into improving and working on the systems and processes. And this is an asset in your business, having good systems and processes. So for Phil and I, often what we do is we're looking at things that are breaking or clunky and then stopping and going, you know what, we need to tidy that process up. And we've got to find what the most valuable time is for us to spend on and in the business and try and stick to that. And the processes and the systems should do the heavy lifting of the rest of it. However, for entrepreneurial and business-minded people, this can be boring to work on because we want to be doing the sexy stuff like the selling, the business development, maybe the doing, whatever it is that you got into business for or your strengths lie. Processes and systems could be very boring for you. Now, we're very lucky with Phil and I that we have two of us who have got business partners in a business relationship. So we each have a business owner that we can speak to and we can spitball how we could do systems and processes differently. Unfortunately, for many businesses that are operating on their own, it's very hard to do that if it's just you, but I'd suggest going and speaking to other business owners that are further down the path from you in your industry and finding what they've done to build the right systems and processes. Now, this can also mean introducing the right types of technology and job management systems so that it's not just all done in your head or on paper and way too oversimplified. You will need good systems and processes. Now, number three is your team, and these are in no particular order, but you will not get to this level on your own. Maybe you can, maybe you're an outlier, maybe that's actually wrong, but for most businesses, you will need a team of people to help you. And even those that are maybe doing $2 million worth of revenue, they will have a form of a team where they're using the team of the technology that they're paying for. So you will need the help of others is the key point here. So you have to build a strong team that you can lean on. Now for Phil and I, we have both employees and we have contractors, and then we have agencies, and we have people that we can call on in our corner, in our team that we've gone out and built over multiple years so that we can lean on them when we need them. Sometimes it might be an hour a month, other times it could be 20 hours a month, it could be 60 hours. It depends what we've got going on. But with the projects and the work that we're doing and the direction we're going on, then we need to know we've got a good team that can support us. Now, if a team member isn't available, you're going to then have to figure out, well, how does this whole thing keep moving if that team member isn't there? So you've got to provide for redundancy of that time not being there as well. But a team is very, very important, and keeping them happy and keeping them on the path of where it is that you're going and taking them on that journey is paramount. Therefore, you're going to have a good vision and explain to them why it is that you're doing what you're doing. You're going to have to attract that team, and it's going to have to be meaningful work for them to want to stick around longer term. There's a good saying that people have all of the solutions that you need. So when you get stuck, think about who, not how. It's a very good business concept where you're going and looking for who's going to be able to help you achieve something rather than how you're going to do it. That's going to help you scale. If you stick to how am I going to do this, you're purely just going to put all the pressure on you consistently and constantly. You want to be looking for who can help you solve the problems that you have, because there's a high likelihood that somebody's already gone before you and done it. So don't be afraid to reach out to those people. Now, the fourth one is that you're probably highly unlikely to do a large level of turnover, whether it be $1 million or $2 million, without reinvesting back into your growth. And one of the ways that we reinvest back into growth is through advertising. And someone recently was very surprised when I said that we invest over $100,000 every single year to promote our business. Now, a lot of businesses won't spend any money on marketing and wonder why they are not growing. But you will not scale something without attention. And maybe you don't want to spend the money on it, but you're going to have to do things to get attention, whether it's dropping a flyer, reaching out to somebody, making calls, sending out emails, reconnecting with past customers, whatever it is, you're still going to need to get their attention. Nothing happens without attention. There are large national sporting bodies that are holding events in the coming months in New Zealand, and they are getting attention on those events, and they are running ads. So in the SME world, we can sort of play this, oh, it's all word of mouth, and I play like that. That's probably not going to get you to $1 million or $2 million worth of genuine turnover with good income and profitability and margin. Maybe if you're selling something at very low margin, but eventually if you want to sell something that is good and provides value to the market, you'll have to convince the market that it also is good and attract those people and then deliver to them the value that they are looking for. So you won't do it without the attention. A lot of Kiwi people are too scared to get attention as well, so they simply won't do it, and they will let that hold them back. But you won't get to $1 million and $2 million worth of turnover without people knowing that you exist. And so you're going to have to do things that you didn't realize you would need to do in order to make it happen. But this is a lesson that you learn early on in business, where you still have to put yourself out there to get your first sale, your first $10,000 worth of sales. It just scales up as you grow, and you want to be deliberate with where you are spending that money and ensure that you're getting a good return on it. So for us, we know that if we're creating educational content, if we're running ads towards this, if we're building up databases, if we're running branding, if we're engaging with our marketing agency, if we're engaging with our contractors and finding out what ideas they have, if we're recording videos like this, it will eventually turn into more revenue. We still have to do the reps and we still have to do it. But if we go back to an earlier point, it is processes and systems. And we know that these processes and systems work, so we don't do it sporadically. We stay consistent and we turn what works into a process. So there's a little pro hack for you. If something is working, do it more often, do it more volume. If you're making outreach calls and you're getting wins from that, do more of them. If you're reconnecting with past customers and it is working to bring in new work, well then make that a process and do it monthly. That's the key. Find the things that work well in business and turn them into a process or a system, as we spoke about earlier. Number 5 is that your time will become so valuable. Now, once you are doing a lot of work, especially in a service-based business, imagine the phone calls, the people getting in touch, the fires that you have to put out, and the issues that you will have to deal with, and the demands that people will have, and the service that people will want. If you're not doing that to a good level, you run the risk that you then lose that revenue. So you still have to be good at what you do, but you're going to have to protect your time. So you've got to find ways to put time back into your day and focus on the high value activities. This means deleting things off your phone that are going to waste your time. This means not having notifications. This means being in do not disturb mode. This means not taking 1 hour phone calls that could be a 2-minute text or email. This means not going to random catch-ups and sitting in traffic when you don't need to be. This means protecting your time at all costs. This is one of the hardest things that we have to master in New Zealand because we get brought up and taught to say yes to everything and you never know what could come of that. And yes, there is some merit to that, but imagine trying to do that in a business that's turning over $2 million when you are involved in that. It can be very, very hard to do. So you're going to have to protect your time, but not only protect it, you're going to have to buy some of it back. That means admin support. That means things like having a cleaner at your house, for instance, being willing to pay money to have things delivered to you, not wasting 40 minutes in traffic and instead using a courier service. You've got to spend money to get your time back to protect it. It can feel very, very strange to get to that point to do that, especially if you've grown up around scarcity or seeing people that have always done things themselves or not wanted to spend money on that. And if you want to scale a business, eventually that will not work. The way that I learned about this and thought about this personally too is that you don't see the Prime Minister nor any MP driving around in the car going to meetings. No, they have a private driver full time. Why? So they can sit in the back and they can continue to do work because their time is more valuable than doing the driver. If the politicians and MPs have figured this out, and let's be honest, are they really that important? If they're doing this and we can't think to do this, what the hell? We are missing a very clear signal that this is how you should value your time. I would argue that a lot of your time will be more valuable than politicians, but let's not get down that rabbit hole. But take your time seriously and be careful of where you're wasting it and who you're giving it away to. It's the most valuable thing you have in your business. So make sure that you're using it to work in the areas of your business that need you to work on. Now, those are my key 5, but I've got some other things that you need to consider as well, because if you don't get these mastered, you'll run into different issues in your business. Now, how I'll lead into these is by reminding you that $2 million or $1 million worth of turnover isn't $2 million or $1 million worth of profit. Income less expenses equals profit times by tax, okay? So when people are out there saying, I make $2 million, well, yeah, sales, but what did it cost you to do that? Start asking people, okay, great, what's your gross profit margin? High chance they don't even know, and they'll be confusing margin with markup and all sorts. But be careful watching these clips and these videos and these people talking about how much they make when there could be costs involved to create those. So for us, we're doing $2 million worth of sales and we have costs to do that, and then it drops out our profit and it's distributed between Phil and I, and then we pay tax at our marginal tax rates. Now, that means that we don't keep the whole $2 million and split $1 million each. But for many people, they still need this pointed out to them. But why I tell you this is that it's important to understand cash flow, because even if you do $2 million worth of sales, but you've got 10% of those sitting in debtors at all times, you're waiting to turn that into cash. So what I mean by that is you're doing the work, you're sending the invoice, but you're not getting the cash. Now, if you have one of those people who don't pay you, well, that's money that you can't have in your bank account to then pay to yourself, reinvest into your business, clear down your loans, or whatever it is that you're going to do. So you have to understand your numbers, and really you need to understand cash flow before you even start getting towards that 1 million level of turnover. Because if you're going to scale problems that you already have at $200,000, $300,000 worth of income, shit, they're going to look ugly when you get to $1 million and $2 million. If you were to 10x that business in terms of income, you're going from $30,000 outstanding to $300,000. That is a lot of money to have owed to you. So you're going to have to understand how cash can move through your business and try and speed up the collection of that. Because what else are you going to have in this business? Well, with a bigger team, with more systems, with more outgoings, with more equipment, you're probably going to have debt, and you're going to need to manage those debt repayments as well, or your supplier payments, or paying for things based on the terms that people are giving to you. So if you don't understand cash flow, it's really something you want to tidy up before you start scaling up your level of income. Now, this one's always really hard for people to understand, but you actually have to fundamentally change the person that you are. Now, to lead on from that cash flow example, if you're not willing to ring up the person who owes you the money, you run the risk that you put your business in jeopardy because you're not going to turn that work into cash, and then maybe you can't pay your bills and it can all unravel. Another version of you will ring that person and say, hey, we noticed you didn't pay. We're going to need to collect payment. Maybe if we go earlier to this, we turn it into a process and a system, but you need to do things that you weren't once comfortable doing. So you've got to constantly reinvent yourself to become the person who can run that version of the business that you are going to have, whether it be $1 million worth of turnover or $2 million worth of turnover. Another way to think about this, if we go back earlier to the clip, we were talking about what is the level of profit or sale that you are selling to, and if you were to scale that up, is that going to get you to where you want to get to? Well, if not, what are you going to have to change? Well, A, the delivery of it, or B, maybe the pricing of it. So another version of you will be the person to do that. So understanding identity and who you are and having the belief in yourself that you can do that becomes very, very important. So to do $1 million or $2 million worth of sales, you're going to have to bash down some of those old beliefs that you have, some of those things that aren't serving you well, some of the things that are holding you back. They've got to go. You're going to have to become a new version of yourself. And one of the best ways to do this is to see yourself as the CEO of your business and direct them and control them like you would if you were to have a CEO. Now that sounds really controlling, but what I mean by that is tell that character, the CEO character version of you, to go and do the thing, make the hard call, ask for the discount with the supplier, ring the person who hasn't paid you, do the marketing, go on the podcast, drop the flyer, knock on the door. That version of you is the CEO version that would get shit done and make it happen. If you're being the little bitch version of yourself, excuse the language, you're not going to do that stuff. That's the wrong identity, and you're not going to be able to use that identity to run $1 million or $2 million turnover business. So you're going to have to become somebody that you currently aren't, but you can do it because many people are. But this is also why many people can't get here, because they're not willing to do the work. It's a fascinating concept. I suggest you spend some more time understanding it. It's very, very powerful. Now, speaking of identity, who is that version of you that would run the business very well? You're going to have to look after yourself. So please make sure you look after yourself, whether it's mentally, physically, or both. You need systems and processes in your life to do that and do it well. Eating well, sleeping well, thinking well, creatively thinking, strategically thinking, all of those things are going to be required of you. So you're going to need to make sure that you're looking after yourself. And let's be honest, I don't put this data together. New Zealand has one of the highest levels of obesity in the OECD. Now, if we don't get into the weeds of that, it just reminds us that there is plenty of bad food out there, bad information. There's plenty of people that are mentally not very happy and unwell as well. You're going to have to protect yourself and look after yourself so that you don't have those things impacting you, or you decrease the likelihood of that happening. It is your responsibility as a business owner to take good care of yourself, both physically and mentally, and be very careful about what you're putting into both your mouth and your ears, because your inputs become your outputs. So please look after yourself and think about who the business that would be turning over $1 million or $2 million, who that character would need to be. They probably need to be of sound mind and sound body. So focus on that and make sure that you don't let that slip, because it's so important to your long-term success and your health and happiness. So build a routine for yourself and make sure you stick to it. It might be around physical and mental health. It may be some gratitude, and maybe some journaling, and maybe talking to people and just de-stressing from the brutal reality of business as a sport. It's so important. Now, the next one is tax. When you start to make over $180,000 in New Zealand, you're probably not going to avoid a 39% tax bill on that income. So what this can do for you is it can really test you. Do you want to do the thing to only receive 60% of it, if we use round numbers? There's probably a reason it's not 40% exactly, so we don't talk as 60 and 40, but realistically, that's what you're left with, 60% of the thing. This changes the way you think, because you're no longer in scarcity mode for a lot of people in this space. So you have to be deliberate with the work that you're taking on, and the true profitability for you is the after-tax profitability. If there's only so much of your time, as we've talked about protecting your time, why would you give that to the person who isn't going to respect it, especially if you're actually only getting 60% of it, not the 100% of it? You don't start to look at things as all just revenue. You start to look at them after the costs and profit if you're adding on new things once you're earning beyond $180,000. Some people would argue that this is not a good way to look at things, and just look at the income and do more and suck it up and pay the tax. There's an argument for that too, and sometimes we present that argument. However, the key point is that you will look at things differently, and you should. You should look at things differently, because once you start earning more money, you'll start to look at different ways to be able to do it. So another example of this is historically what's happened in New Zealand. Instead of people going and swapping their time for more money to then be taxed, They will then go and swap their servicing ability for more debt to buy more property to then get a capital gain, which they know that they aren't going to get taxed on. So we are foolish if we don't think that we are making choices based on tax. So you do want to start to understand your longer term journey of the work that you will do, the taxes that you will pay, and different ways that you could make money and where you are investing. These are all great things to learn. And maybe if you're not at a mil of turnover, 2 million, or even in that top tax bracket, it's okay. Start learning about capital deployment as well. Because the other piece of this will be, do you make those investments into the property, into the stocks, into the venture capital fund, or whatever it could be? Or do you reinvest that money back into your business? A good example for Phil and I is we reinvest money back into our business in the form of advertising. This guarantees us revenue into the future and improves the asset value of Next Advisory. So that's a tax deductible expense. Whereas if we just didn't do the marketing and then we took extra money out, we'd pay the 40% tax on that, have the 60% left over, and then go and invest it into things. So you will have to start thinking about these things. What's the best allocation of your capital? And it's stuff that we don't often talk about in New Zealand because there are only 3% of taxpayers in that top tax bracket anyway, and we are all shit scared about talking about money. But business is an environment where you can learn these things and you get to have some of these conversations with yourself and your family, your business partner, and go and explore them. And we would encourage you to do exactly that. Right, let's not forget that it's taken us a number of years to get to this $2 million of turnover. And a long time ago, our goal was $1 million worth of turnover. So your goalposts will move, and that's completely fine. Enjoy the journey that you're on. So make sure you reward yourself for the progress that you are making and look back at how far you've come as well. Try not to stay in that constant feeling of I'm not enough and the business isn't enough and there should be more and more. Sometimes less is more. But when you start to scale, you have to think about these things. We hope they help you because they've certainly helped us to get us to where we've got to. Cheers.